Solutions, 2nd edition, pre-intermediate, by Tim Faller and Paul A. Davies. Published and copyright Oxford University Press, 2012. cd3. Lesson 7C, Exercises 5 and 6. Craig.
My sisters and I wanted to get my mum and dad something really nice for their 20th wedding anniversary. We thought about jewellery, chocolates, DVDs, but we couldn't find anything, special. Finally, my oldest sister had a brilliant idea. We bought them tickets for a show in London, a musical, and we kept it a surprise for Mum and Dad. They really loved it. This was about 4 years ago now, but they still talk about it.
Vicky.
I remember it was one Christmas, about 5 or 6 years ago. The whole family was there, and I opened a present from my Aunt Victoria. It was a book. Everybody was looking at me, asking me what it was. So I read the title out, The Big Book of Jokes. So my dad said, "Well, let's hear some jokes then. Read them out, Vicky." It was so embarrassing. I sat there reading out the worst jokes you can imagine. Nobody laughed. I wanted to stop, but my dad kept saying, "Try another one." It was horrible.
Harry.
I was about 5 years old, I suppose, and I was a really huge Batman fan. I loved him. I wanted to be him. For my birthday that year, I got a Batman costume. I couldn't believe it. I put it on straight away, and I didn't take it off. I think I wore that Batman costume every day for 6 weeks. At home, in town, at the shops. A few weeks later, I lost interest in Batman. I never really wore the costume again. But still, it's a present that's really stayed in my mind.
Beth.
A couple of years ago, I went out to buy a present for my mum for Mother's Day. I went to a department store, and as I walked through the door, a woman asked me to try lots of perfumes. I liked one of them a lot, but it was quite expensive. I didn't have enough money to buy the perfume and a present for my mum. So I had an idea. I bought the perfume as a present for my mum. The trouble is, my mum can't wear perfume. She's allergic to it, but I forgot that until after I gave it to her. She was okay about it. She said it didn't matter, but I felt really bad.
Lesson 7D. Exercise 2. 1.
If you open an umbrella indoors, it'll bring bad luck.
2.
If you see 2 magpies, you'll be lucky.
3.
If the sky is red in the evening, the weather will be good the next day.
4.
Something bad will happen to you if you walk under a ladder.
5.
You'll have a male visitor if you drop a knife, and a female visitor if it's a fork.
Lesson 7D. Exercise 5. 1.
If you get out of bed on the right side, your day will start well.
2.
If you don't eat meat on the first day of the Chinese year, you'll have a long and happy life.
3.
If an unmarried girl steps on a cat's tail, she won't find a husband in the next year.
4.
If you put a pair of shoes on a table, it'll bring bad luck.
5.
If you give your boyfriend or girlfriend a pair of shoes, he or she will leave you.
6.
If you look in a broken mirror, you'll have bad luck.
Lesson 7E. Exercise 2.
April Fool. Do you celebrate April Fool's Day? On the 1st of April, people in Britain like to play jokes on each other. If someone can trick another person before midday, then they can call them an April Fool. The tradition probably began in France in the 16th century, when the calendars changed and 10 days disappeared from the year 1582. This annual tradition is repeated in different countries and cultures around the world, but not always on the same date, and with different kinds of joke. In France, the tradition is called Poisson d'Avril, or April Fish. You have to try to pin a paper fish on another person's back without the person noticing. In Spanish-speaking countries, people play tricks on the 28th of December, the day of the Holy Innocents, to celebrate childhood. The Portuguese celebrate April Fool's Day on the Sunday and Monday before Lent. The custom there is to throw flour at each other. In Belgium, children have to try to lock their parents or teachers out of the house or school. TV stations, radio stations, and businesses around the world try to trick people with false stories. Some stories have become famous. On the 1st of April 1998, Burger King advertised its new hamburger for left-handed people. Many people went into restaurants to buy them. In Cologne, Germany, a radio station asked people not to run faster than 10 kilometers per hour in the city park so that they wouldn't upset the squirrels. On British television, the BBC has played tricks on people for decades. In 1957, a news programme reported that people grew spaghetti in Italy. It showed a film of people picking long strings of spaghetti from trees. More recently, a BBC Nature documentary reported that there were penguins in Antarctica that could fly. It showed a film of the birds flying to the Amazon rainforest to enjoy some sunshine.
Lesson 7F. Exercise 2.
Good morning. Can I help you?
Yes, we're visiting Bath for a couple of days and we were wondering what to see.
I can certainly help you with that. Here's a leaflet. I think you should visit the Roman baths. They're 2,000 years old.
Ooh, are they nearby?
Yes, just 100 meters from here.
What else can you recommend?
If you take an open-top bus tour of the city, you'll see all the major sites.
That sounds fun. Are there any festivals or carnivals on at the moment?
No, I'm afraid not. What else are you interested in?
We'd like to do some shopping.
You ought to go to Southgate, the main shopping centre.
OK, thanks. Where do we catch the sightseeing bus?
The bus stop is marked here on the map. You needn't buy a ticket in advance. You can just get on.
Great. Thanks very much.
Lesson 7F. Exercises 4 and 5.
Good afternoon. Can I help you?
Yes. We'd like some information about the city.
Certainly. What would you like to know?
Pardon? I'm a little hard of hearing. Could you speak up a bit?
He says, "What would we like to know, dear?"
Well, my husband and I are here for a few days. What do you recommend we see?
Well, there's the castle, of course, and 2 or 3 beautiful churches.
How much does it cost to get into the castle?
I think it's £10.
That's rather a lot.
There may be a reduction for senior citizens. This leaflet here has all the information.
Thank you. What about art galleries?
There's a museum of modern art.
I'm sorry. Could you repeat that?
There's a museum of modern art.
Oh, no. We don't like modern art, do we, Geoffrey?
No, dear, you don't.
What was that, Geoffrey? Speak clearly. Now, can you recommend a good restaurant that serves local food? Nothing too expensive, mind.
Well, there are a number of good restaurants in King's Road.
Can you show me where that is on the map?
Yes. We are here, and King's Road is here. I think you should probably get a bus or a taxi.
Oh, no, we'll drive.
Cars aren't allowed in the city centre, I'm afraid.
What did he say, Geoffrey?
Cars aren't allowed in the city centre.
That's ridiculous.
It's quite a long way. Where can we get a taxi from?
We're not wasting money on taxis, Geoffrey. And I refuse to use public transport. We'll just have to eat at the hotel.
Get ready for your exam 4. Speaking. Exercise 4.
Turn on the phone by pressing this button. To send a message, touch the Messages icon. Then scroll down the list of contacts and select the one you want. Then key in your message and touch the Send button.
Get ready for your exam 4. Speaking. Exercise 7.
Welcome to Food Diary. We are discussing the nation's favourite dishes, and this week we talk to 5 of the best chefs working in Britain today. We ask them what their favourite British meal is.
Speaker 1.
I grew up in a seaside village in Wales. Every Friday I went to the fish and chip shop after school and bought some to take home for everybody. The fish was so fresh, and the batter around the fish was light and delicious. So were the chips. It's a meal I now make in my fish restaurant, and people like it so much that they sometimes queue right out of the door to get it.
Speaker 2.
My favourite dish when I was young was my mother's steak and kidney pudding. It's basically a pie with meat and onion in it. My mum made the best steak and kidney pudding ever, but I try to make the second best one. I use the very best meat. You can follow my special recipe in my latest cookbook.
Speaker 3.
In my television programme, I show you how to make my favourite British dish, fresh fruit trifle. I loved it as a child. We had it every Christmas and on birthdays in our family. You can use any fruit, but the secret is to leave the cake pieces in sherry for a long time and use lots of fresh cream.
Speaker 4.
My parents are Italian, so I always ate wonderful Italian food at home. But the British dish I remember is fish pie. I used to eat it at my friend's house. I love the mashed potato and cheese on the top, and the different pieces of fish and vegetables underneath. It's so good you can have it at my Italian restaurant.
Speaker 5.
I think the most famous British dish is a full English breakfast. We ate this at home on Sundays. My aunt and uncle came round to our house to make it. They brought wonderful bacon and sausages from their farm. I loved the fried tomatoes and mushrooms. You can have a full English breakfast every day until midday at my London hotel.
Get ready for your exam 4. Speaking. Exercises 11 and 12.
I'd rather go to the restaurant in picture 1 with my friends because it seems less formal. The waiter looks friendly and he is wearing casual clothes. There are some young people in the restaurant, so it's probably quite relaxed. I think it serves Italian food, pasta and pizza. My friends love Italian food, so in my opinion, they will enjoy having a meal there. I wouldn't like to go to the restaurant in picture 2 because it looks more formal and it is probably more expensive. I'm not very keen on formal restaurants. The people look very elegant. The waiter is wearing a white shirt and a tie, and the tables are neatly laid, so it's definitely not a place for a group of students.
Unit 8. Lesson 8A. Exercise 3.
Avalanche. Disease. Drought. Earthquake. Famine. Flood. Forest fire. Hurricane. Landslide. Tornado. Tsunami. Volcanic eruption.
Lesson 8A. Exercise 5. 1.
We were skiing near to Chamonix in the Alps when the snow on the slope above us started to slide down towards us.
2.
It starts with a bad headache and sickness. People usually recover if they see a doctor quickly.
3.
The water was 2 meters deep in parts of the town, and the situation won't get any better until the rain stops.
4.
We saw a huge wave moving towards the shore at a terrifying speed. Luckily, we managed to escape to higher ground.
5.
I woke up suddenly in the middle of the night when my bed started to shake. It lasted about 30 seconds.
6.
The eruption started at 3 p.m. The mountainside exploded and millions of tons of lava flowed down into the sea.
7.
It hasn't rained for over 6 months in this part of Africa. The crops are dying in the fields.
8.
The flames swept through the dry forest, destroying thousands of hectares of trees.
9.
Heavy rains caused tons of rock and mud to slide down the mountainside, destroying a road and a railway line.
10.
If food doesn't reach the poorest region in the north of the country, then thousands of people will die of hunger.
Lesson 8A. Exercise 6.
The hurricane struck the town of Tipton Bay on the south coast at 4 p.m. on Saturday afternoon and lasted for 12 hours. Winds reached speeds of 200 kilometres an hour. Luckily, people left their homes before the hurricane arrived, and nobody lost their life. However, flying metal and glass injured about 20 people. Emergency services rescued over 50 people from boats near the coast, and charities quickly sent food and tents to help people without homes. The hurricane seriously damaged hundreds of buildings and destroyed crops in the fields around the town.
Vocabulary Builder 8, Part 2, Exercise 4.
Inform. Information. React. Reaction. Educate. Education. Protect. Protection. Dark. Darkness. Good. Goodness.
Lesson 8C, Exercise 2.
Proud of their dustbin. The dustbin is full to the top with crisp packets and coloured plastic. In fact, it's so full that it's difficult to put the lid on. But the Strauss family, who own this dirty old dustbin full of rubbish, are very proud of it. Why? Because it contains all the family's rubbish for a whole year. 2 years ago, Richard and Rochelle Strauss and their daughter Verona read an article about plastic bags and how they cause pollution and harm sea creatures. They decided to stop using plastic bags completely. Now, when they buy food, they reuse their own bags each time. They recycle as much as they can: glass bottles, plastic bottles, paper, cardboard, cans. And they simply don't buy things if they can't recycle the packaging. They buy their toothpaste in aluminium tubes just because aluminium can be recycled. And they never throw food away, they eat their leftovers or use them to make compost. At the moment, it's impossible to recycle plastic crisp packets and sweet wrappers, and Verona loves crisps. If she bought a packet of crisps a day, she'd have to throw away lots of plastic. So she buys the biggest packets she can find, and each packet lasts for a week. The family are keeping a record of their lifestyle on their website. They hope that other people will read it and reduce their waste. If everyone recycled a bit more, it would make a huge difference.
Lesson 8C, Exercises 5 and 6. Ava.
I think it's important to recycle as much as you can because it saves energy, and it saves natural resources too. For example, if we all recycled paper and cardboard, then they wouldn't need to cut down as many trees. So I always put paper in the recycling bin, not in the dustbin. I try to recycle glass too, but that's more difficult. There aren't so many recycling bins for glass. In my view, you don't have to recycle everything. A little is better than nothing.
James.
I'm pretty good about recycling, really. Paper, glass, plastic. I make sure I don't throw any of those materials in the dustbin. But some people don't really care about it. The rest of my family, for example. The worst is my dad. He never puts stuff in the recycling bin, even if there's one right next to him. I keep telling him to do it, and he says, "Yeah, right, I will." But then next time he doesn't. He says he can't get used to it. If you ask me, he's just lazy.
Charlotte.
You see a lot of signs about recycling, and some people talk about it all the time. Recycle this, don't waste that. It gets so boring. To be honest, I don't pay much attention. I'm not going to carry an empty drinks can with me all day just so that I can put it in a recycling bin. The way I see it, life's too short to worry about recycling. There are plenty of other things to worry about.
Archie.
We've got a system at home. We put paper in one box, glass in another box, and plastic in another. Since we started doing that, we don't even fill up the dustbin during the week. It's made a real difference. We're producing much less rubbish, and that's good for the environment. The thing is, we live on a crowded planet. More than 6 billion people. We have to think about the rubbish we produce, or there just won't be anywhere to put it all.
Lesson 8E. Exercise 3. Collision course. It is 2036. An enormous asteroid is going to collide with Earth. If it isn't stopped, it will crash into the Pacific Ocean, creating a devastating tsunami. What happens next? And no, that isn't a question about the plot of a science fiction film. It's a question about a very real danger. There are millions of asteroids in our solar system, and if a large one collided with the Earth, it would be a disaster. If a large asteroid crashed into the Earth tomorrow, what would happen? If it landed in a large city, millions of people would die instantly. The impact would cause massive destruction. Imagine colliding with a rock as big as a mountain that is travelling at 20 kilometres a second. If the asteroid landed in the ocean, there would be a giant tsunami. Thousands of cities around the world would flood. If the asteroid landed in a very remote area of land, there would be fewer deaths at first. However, the explosion would send a huge cloud of dust into the Earth's atmosphere. This dark cloud would block the light and heat from the sun. Crops wouldn't grow, and it would be impossible to feed people. The short answer is, it has happened already. About 65 million years ago, most life on Earth disappeared, including all of the dinosaurs. We now believe that this was because of a huge asteroid which changed the Earth's weather. The asteroid was at least 10 kilometers in diameter and landed in Mexico, leaving a hole more than 180 kilometers across. On the morning of the 30th of June 1908, a much smaller asteroid, about 90 meters across, exploded in the sky above central Siberia. Nobody lived nearby, so there were no deaths, although the explosion was so powerful that it destroyed an enormous area of forest and knocked a man off his chair 112 kilometers away. Scientists believe that there are two main options. We could blow up the asteroid with nuclear weapons, or we could make it change direction. Both options have their disadvantages. If we blew up the asteroid, it could break into smaller pieces.
Each piece could then be a danger. There are several ideas about how to make an asteroid change direction, but nobody knows which would work best, and it's impossible to test the technology. And if we failed, we probably wouldn't get another chance.
Lesson 8F. Exercises 3 and 4.
Let me see. I'd choose the first method of raising money, the sponsored run. The main reason for this is that I think a sponsored run would raise more money, because every runner would ask all their friends and family members to sponsor them. I mean, You can see in the photo that lots of people are taking part in the sponsored run at the same time. And there are lots of people watching too. That's good, because it means lots of people know about the event. There is also the fact that there's a connection between the event and the reason for the event. What I mean is, you're raising money for sports equipment by doing a sports event, athletics. I'm rejecting the second option because it would only involve a few people and probably wouldn't raise very much money. As you can see in the photo, the bear is waving at the passers-by, but nobody is looking.
Skills Roundup 1 to 8. Exercises 4 and 5.
Hi, Anna. Come in. Danny and I were just talking about Red Nose Day.
Oh, right. What's that?
It's a charity event. It's quite big here in the UK. Lots of people arrange special fundraising events.
So we're thinking of doing something here at Golden Hills, but we can't decide what to do.
Have you got any ideas?
Yes, I think we should organise a sponsored run. People can wear costumes, raise some money, and get some exercise at the same time.
What do you think, Anna?
Well, I'm not sure. Some people don't really enjoy running.
Have you got any better ideas?
I don't know. I haven't had time to think about it yet.
I reckon we should have a quiz night. I can set the questions, and the guests can all be in teams.
Boring.
I don't think it's boring. People love quizzes.
No, they don't. I don't. I hate them.
Some people like them, but maybe there's a better option.
Like what?
I know. Why don't we organise a talent show?
You mean like X Factor? With singing?
It doesn't have to be singing. People could choose to do different things like comedy or dancing or anything, really.
I think that's a great idea. What do you think, Danny?
I'm not sure. How many people would really want to take part?
I don't know.
That doesn't matter. If we get 10 different acts, that's enough. Everybody else can watch. Talent shows are really popular these days.
But how will it actually raise money?
We'll sell tickets for the show.
I'm just not sure. I still think a sponsored run is a better idea. More people could take part, and it would be fun.
It wouldn't be much fun for me. I hate running.
Don't be so lazy.
We could do both. A sponsored run and a talent show.
That's true. We don't have to choose, do we?
Fine. I'll organise a sponsored run. You can organise a talent show. And we'll see who raises the most money.
OK, let's do that. So, when is Red Nose Day?
It's in 2 weeks' time. So we better start organising.
Unit 9, Lesson 9A. Exercise 2.
Arson. Arsonist. Set fire to.
Burglary. Burglar. Burglar house.
Drug dealing. Drug dealer. Deal drugs.
Joyriding. Joyrider. Go joyriding.
Mugging. Mugger. Mug someone.
Shoplifting. Shoplifter. Shoplift.
Robbery. Robber. Rob someone. Rob a bank.
Theft. Thief. Steal something.
Vandalism. Vandal. Vandalize something.
Murder. Murderer. Murder someone.
Lesson 9A. Exercises 4 and 5. 1.
A gang of criminals robbed a bank in central Paris yesterday. During the day, they hid in a shop next door to the bank, and then got into the bank during the night by making a hole in the wall. The gang escaped with €1 million in cash.
2.
Residents of the Marcham housing estate in Bristol are complaining that gangs of young people are openly selling heroin and cocaine on the streets. The police have questioned a number of teenagers, but say that they have no firm evidence to make arrests.
3.
South Milton Village Hall was destroyed in a fire last night. Fire engines came from nearby Kingsbridge, but were unable to put out the flames. An empty petrol can was found nearby. Police suspect that somebody deliberately set fire to the hall.
4.
Somebody broke into a Highfield school on Saturday night and caused thousands of pounds of damage. They obviously weren't burglars, as nothing was stolen. However, they smashed a lot of desks, chairs and computers and broke a number of windows.
5.
A woman stole jewellery worth £1,000 from a shop in the town centre. She asked to see some necklaces and earrings and then put them into her bag while the shop assistant wasn't looking and ran out of the shop. She was later identified from CCTV footage and arrested.
6.
The body of a woman was found at a flat in South London on Sunday. She died of gunshot wounds. Police immediately started to look for her husband, who disappeared at about the same time. Police arrested a 45-year-old man yesterday in connection with her death.
Lesson 9C. Exercise 2.
The Legend of Robin Hood. Robin Hood is one of the most popular and interesting figures in English folklore, and his story is quite well known across the world. There have been several films made about him, including 3 in Hollywood. But who was he, and did he actually exist? In the 13th century, the story goes, there was a brave young man in Nottingham who fought against injustice with his band of outlaws. At that time, King Richard and his army were fighting in foreign lands. John was a mean and cruel ruler, and so was his friend, the terrible Sheriff of Nottingham. The sheriff demanded money from all the people who lived in the area of Nottingham. The poor had to pay large amounts and struggled to survive and feed their families. In the legend, Robin Hood was angry at the injustice and decided to fight against it. He and his band of outlaws lived in Sherwood Forest, an enormous wood near Nottingham that belonged to the king. They hunted the king's deer for food. The forest was considered a dangerous place, but to Robin and his band, it was a place of safety, away from the sheriff's men. There is some evidence that a man called Robin Hood actually lived during the 13th century, but it is unlikely that he was quite such a good man. Today, Sherwood Forest is a tourist attraction. Nearly 1 million people every year go to the visitor centre there to learn about Britain's most famous outlaw. And even if he wasn't quite such a great man, it's a great story.
Lesson 9C. Exercise 5. Kevin.
It's obviously wrong, morally wrong, to steal. If I own something, I obviously don't want someone to steal it from me. Having said that, imagine somebody who is homeless, hasn't got any money, and has children to feed. What are they going to do? I think it's okay in those circumstances for that person to steal food from a shop. And shoplifting isn't as bad as becoming a drug dealer or a burglar, which is what some desperate people do to get money. But I think that if people have to steal, they should only steal what they need and no more. And they should steal from big organisations, big shops, not from, small shops and ordinary people.
Jill.
A friend of mine ordered a couple of DVDs on the internet a while back, and the company sent her 2 of each by mistake. I said, "What are you going to do?" And she was like, "I'm going to keep them, of course." And I was quite surprised, because she's a very honest person in other ways. She thinks it's wrong to steal, but she doesn't see that as stealing. She didn't actually take the DVDs, but I don't think it's any different from going into a shop and walking out with them without paying. Stealing is stealing. If it doesn't belong to you, don't take it. And if somebody gives you something by mistake, you should give it back.
Andy.
We all know the difference between right and wrong, but is stealing always wrong? I suppose it depends on what you mean by stealing. If a shop assistant gives you the wrong change and you keep it, is that stealing? Maybe it depends on how much money is involved. That reminds me. I was in a restaurant with some friends and the waiter forgot to add a couple of drinks onto the bill. We'd ordered them and drunk them. So he undercharged us by £5. But it was quite an expensive restaurant, and the food and the service weren't really very good, so we didn't say anything. But I don't feel bad about that. Perhaps I should, though, because technically it's stealing. It's a difficult one.
Lesson 9E. Exercise 2.
Cybercrime. Copycat. A man was jailed for 4 years last week for copying thousands of debit cards. Theogenes de Montfort was the leader of a gang of criminals who added a special hidden machine to cash machines at petrol stations. The tiny machine copied the information from the debit cards that people put into the machines. The gang then made copies of the cards and used them to buy things in shops and on the internet. They also put the cards into cash machines and took money from people's bank accounts. De Montfort had copied 35,000 cards and had stolen over £720,000. Are you who you say you are? Sam Jenkins was astonished when she discovered that her bank account was empty. Just 2 weeks before, there had been £15,000 in it. The bank told her that she had moved the money herself to a new account with another bank. A month before, Sam had received an email which asked her to give personal information such as bank account details, passwords, and PIN numbers. She thought the email was from her bank, but it wasn't. The person who sent it used the information to steal Sam's identity and open a new bank account. They then moved Sam's money into the new account, took the money out, and closed the account. Sam still doesn't know who sent the fake email. Email my love to you. I love you was an email message that people were delighted to receive. It was sent to thousands of people on the morning of the 4th of May 2000. But it contained a virus. When they opened the email, the virus went to everyone in their address book. It quickly spread around the world and caused terrible damage to hundreds of computer systems. Most large organisations, including the British government, had to close their email systems to get rid of it. A Filipino computer programmer had written the virus. The police arrested him, but at that time it wasn't a crime to write computer viruses, so they had to let him go. Click on the link. Sanford Wallace is called the Spam King. During the 1990s, he had a company called Cyber Promotions, which helped other companies to advertise their products by email. He did this by sending about 30 million junk emails every day. Many people were very angry when they received enormous numbers of email advertisements, but Wallace hadn't done anything illegal. Then, in 2009, Wallace sent emails to 14 million Facebook users. The emails directed them to other websites that paid Wallace for each visit. That was illegal, and he was told by the courts to pay Facebook $711 million.
Lesson 9F. Exercise 2.
Good afternoon. What can I do for you?
I'd like to report a theft, please. Someone has stolen my rucksack.
May I just ask you some questions? Where did you last have the rucksack?
I think I left it in a shop in the high street.
And when was that?
About half an hour ago.
And you've been back to the shop to see if it's there?
Yes, I went straight back, but it wasn't there.
OK. I'll just take some details. Could you describe the rucksack, please?
Yes, it's yellow. It's made of canvas.
And what was in the rucksack?
Some books, some keys, and some makeup.
OK. Was there any ID in the rucksack?
I'm not sure.
That's fine. If you could just fill in this form, please, and we'll log it.
Lesson 9F. Exercises 5 and 6.
Good morning. How can I help you?
Good morning. Yes, I'd like to report a theft. Someone has stolen my wallet from my jacket. I was in the tourist information office, and I was going to pay...
Just a moment, please. I need to take down the details. Would you mind telling me your name, please?
Michael Phipps. That's P-H-I-P-P-S. I'm from New York.
Thank you. And your wallet is missing?
Stolen.
Now, when did this happen?
Like I said, I was in the tourist information office about half an hour ago. I'd used it to buy some lunch at a cafe only a few minutes before. I was going to pay for a guidebook, and it wasn't there.
Are you sure you didn't leave it in the cafe?
Yes, positive.
But you went back to the cafe to check?
I was going to, but then I remembered putting it back in my bag, so I didn't.
You said it was in your jacket.
Yes. Sorry, it was in my jacket. There was a very suspicious-looking man in the tourist information office.
I see. And did you go anywhere else, apart from the information office and the cafe?
I walked through the park. I bought an ice cream, but I didn't need my wallet for that.
I see. Could I ask what was in the wallet?
About £50, my credit cards, and some traveler's checks.
Okay. You should ring the credit card companies and tell them what's happened. They'll stop the cards so that nobody can use them.
Okay.
And you need to contact your bank and tell them about the traveler's checks.
Okay. But I don't think I have the number.
You can get the number online. Could I ask you to describe the wallet, please?
Yes. It's brown, made of leather. Are you going to arrest the suspicious-looking man?
Excuse me a moment. Modbury Police Station? How can I help you? I see. Yes. He's here. I'll send him over right away. Yes, thank you. Goodbye. That was the cafe. The manager said they'd found a brown wallet.
Get ready for your exam 5. Listening. Exercise 2.
Although polar bears can be dangerous, it is polar bears that are in danger. Their icy world is melting, and these beautiful animals are now an endangered species. Polar bears live in the Arctic, one of the coldest places on Earth. The temperature there is often below 55 degrees Celsius, and the winds blow at an average speed of 30 miles an hour. Polar bears are found in parts of Alaska, Canada, Russia, Norway, and Greenland. They live on the ice that covers the Arctic. This is sea ice rather than freshwater ice. The bears live on the edge of the ice, near the water, where they can find food. They cannot live anywhere else. Polar bears are the most dangerous animals in the Arctic. They mainly hunt seals, but they also eat fish, seabirds, and even whales when they can. Their only enemies are humans, who hunt and kill them. But humans are now threatening polar bears in a different way. Climate change is now the biggest threat to the lives of polar bears. As the Earth becomes warmer, the temperature of the sea rises. This causes more and more of the Arctic ice to melt each summer. Arctic sea ice has decreased since the early 1970s. As the ice disappears, so do the animals that the polar bears hunt and eat. And food isn't the only problem. Polar bears are used to swimming between areas of ice to look for food, but as the ice melts, the distances between the areas of ice are much bigger. Polar bears are strong swimmers, but they are now dying in the sea because they cannot swim the increased distances. On the 14th of May, 2008, polar bears were declared an endangered species. There are only around 20 to 25,000 polar bears remaining around the North Pole. If we don't act soon to prevent more of the ice from melting, these amazing animals may become extinct within a few decades.
Unit 10, Lesson 10A, Exercise 3. Fiction.
Comic. Novel. Play. Short story.
Non-fiction.
Atlas. Autobiography. Biography. Cookbook. Dictionary. Encyclopedia. Grammar book. Guidebook. Magazine. Manual. Newspaper. Textbook. Thesaurus.
Lesson 10A, Exercises 7 and 8.
Hi, Matt. What are you reading?
It's a magazine article about famous authors. It's really interesting. And there's a questionnaire too.
Great! I love questionnaires. Let's do it. What's the first question?
How many books a year do you read?
That's a difficult question. I suppose it means fiction. You know, novels.
Yes, probably. So, what's your answer?
About 2 a month, I guess. That's, 24 a year.
24 novels a year? That's loads. I only read about 5. I do read lots of comics, though.
You can't include those. I read hundreds of magazines. OK, next question.
OK, question 2. Would you rather read a novel or see a film of that novel?
I'd rather read it, definitely. Then you can use your imagination. It's much more interesting.
Well, I'd rather see the film. More exciting.
I don't agree. Anyway, what's the next question?
If you were an author, would you prefer to be poor but famous or rich but unknown?
That's tricky. I'd prefer to be rich and famous.
That isn't one of the choices.
OK. Famous and poor.
So fame would be more important to you than money?
Yes, I think so. If I was an author. What about you?
I'd prefer to be rich.
I thought so. Are there any more questions?
Yes, one more. Have you ever written a short story for fun?
No, not really. Only for school.
I have.
Really? I didn't know that. What was it about?
It was a science fiction story about the future.
Really? Can I read it?
No.
Oh, go on, please.
No, you can't. I don't want anyone to know about it.
So why did you mention it?
I was just answering the questions. I didn't want to talk about it.
Lesson 10b. Exercise 5.
50 years ago, manuscripts were written by hand or on a typewriter. Picture A.
Today, manuscripts are typed on a computer.
50 years ago, the finished manuscript was sent to the publisher by post. Picture B.
Today, the finished manuscript is emailed to the publisher.
50 years ago, pictures were drawn on paper.
Today, most pictures are created on a computer. Picture C.
50 years ago, metal plates were made by the printers.
Today, some books are printed directly from a computer.
50 years ago, books were sold only in bookshops.
Today, more books are bought online than from bookshops. Picture D.
Lesson 10c. Exercises 4 and 5. I'm on the streets of Stratford-upon-Avon, where Shakespeare was born and died about 400 years ago. I want to ask some young people what they think of Shakespeare. Hello, excuse me, can I ask you a couple of questions about Shakespeare?
Yes. OK.
Have you ever seen a Shakespeare play?
Yeah. I saw Hamlet last year. Our whole class went to see it. We're studying it at school, you see.
What's your opinion of Shakespeare? What do you think of his plays?
He's too difficult. I mean, the language is too hard to understand. It's so old-fashioned. I hate it. I just can't understand what it's all about.
OK, thanks for that. Excuse me, can I ask you, what do you think of Shakespeare? Do you find him very difficult?
Well, yes. The language in Shakespeare's plays is difficult, of course. But I have a really good teacher at school who makes it a lot easier. And once you understand the language, you understand how fantastic the stories are. I mean, for example, Hamlet is really action-packed and very exciting.
Have you seen any Shakespeare plays?
Yes, I've seen Romeo and Juliet. We're studying it at school. I've seen King Lear too. You have to see them at the theatre. That's how they should be seen.
OK, thanks very much. Excuse me, I'm just asking young people about Shakespeare. What do you think of Shakespeare? Are his plays interesting?
Yes, I think so. I mean, he writes about important topics.
Important topics? What, for example?
Things like love and hate, politics, society, that kind of thing. I also think the people in his plays are interesting. Yeah, the characters are very interesting.
Are you studying any of his plays at school?
Yes, we're reading Julius Caesar. In fact, I'm going to see it this evening. That's why I'm in Stratford.
Have you seen any other Shakespeare plays at the theatre?
Yes, I saw Romeo and Juliet in London last summer. It was set in New York, and the actors' clothes were all modern, and there were gangsters with guns. It was great, because I could understand what was happening. I really began to understand what Shakespeare was trying to say.
Lesson 10e. Exercise 2.
The vampires return. They're young, they're rebellious, and they have a taste for blood. This description fits not only the characters in modern vampire novels, but also many of the readers. Some teenagers love vampire stories so much, it's almost an addiction. But what is their appeal? Is it the plot or the characters? And why are they so popular with teenagers in particular, apart from the blood? The modern fashion for vampire stories probably started in 1976, with the publication of Interview with the Vampire, a novel by the American writer Anne Rice. This novel and its sequels are known as the Vampire Chronicles, and about 80 million copies have been sold around the world. They are different from earlier vampire stories in one important way. Some of the vampires are likeable characters. For example, the main character, Louis, needs to drink blood to survive, but he hates harming people. There are two different sides to his personality, and many teenagers can identify with this. When the stories were made into a film, the part of Louis was played by Brad Pitt. The most successful vampire books of the last 10 years are the 4 novels in the Twilight series by Stephenie Meyer. The books are about the relationship between the female lead, Bella Swan, and a young, sensitive vampire called Edward Cullen. The first novel, Twilight, was written in 2003. When the author finished the final chapter, she wrote an epilogue, and then another, and then another. She realised she had enough ideas for more novels. That is why she wrote the sequels, and millions of teenagers around the world are glad that she did. They love the mix of fantasy, horror and romance. The novels have been made into successful films too. Although Twilight is a 21st century sensation, in fact, the popularity of vampire stories is nothing new. In 1897, the Irish writer Bram Stoker wrote a novel called Dracula. 25 years later, the film director Max Schreck made the first vampire film, Nosferatu. The film was so similar to Bram Stoker's novel that his family took legal action against the film studio and won. The film studio had to destroy the film, but fortunately a few secret copies survived, and in the 1990s, the film was seen again for the first time in 70 years. Like a true vampire, Nosferatu came back from the dead. And a lot of the familiar imagery of vampires which teenagers love, pale skin, black hair, red lips, dates back to the original novel and film. Horror stories are particularly popular with teenagers, and that is partly the appeal of vampire novels. But teenagers also enjoy the important themes, the fight between good and evil, or the difference between what you want to do and what you should do. For example, in the Twilight books, can Edward show his love for Bella and look after her, or will the vampire side of his personality win? These issues are interesting for teenagers who are just starting to face life's big questions about love, morality, good and evil. For teenagers in the real world, most problems aren't a matter of life and death, but they often feel like it.
Lesson 10F. Exercise 1.
Hi, Jack. It's Sophie. Are you in town?
Yes, I am. I'm at the shopping centre.
Great. Do you fancy meeting up?
Yes, OK. What do you want to do?
I'd like to see the new Ben Stiller film.
OK. Why don't we have something to eat first?
I'd rather see the film first, if that's OK. It starts in 40 minutes.
Fine. Where do you want to meet?
Shall we meet by the bus stop?
Good idea. I'll be there in 15 minutes.
OK, great. See you later.
Why don't we go for a pizza after the film?
Sure, why not?
Lesson 10F. Exercises 6 and 7.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Gary. How are you?
Fine, thanks.
Where are you?
I'm at the entertainment store in town. What about you?
I'm just getting off the bus next to the park. The entertainment store is near the park, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just next to it.
Why don't we meet in the park? It's a beautiful day. We can have a picnic.
Have you got any food with you?
No, but I've got some money. And I'm standing right outside a supermarket.
Oh, okay.
Well, do you fancy coming to the park for a picnic?
I'd prefer to finish my shopping first. I need to buy a present for my brother.
What are you going to get him?
A computer game, probably. If I can find a good one that he hasn't got.
Well, why don't we meet in the entertainment store instead? I could help you find a present. And I want to buy the new Shakira CD anyway.
Great, thanks.
And then shall we have a picnic in the park?
Sure. Why not?
Skills Roundup 1 to 10. Exercises 2 and 3.
Come in.
Hello, Anna.
Oh, hi, Danny. How are you?
I'm fine. And you?
Yes, fine. Feeling a bit sad, though. You know, about leaving.
Yes, I understand. When are you going?
Tomorrow. My course starts next Wednesday, but I want a few days to get used to it.
Remind me, which university is it?
The University of Liverpool. I'm starting a degree in economics.
Oh, yes.
It's a 3-year course.
Have you got anywhere to live in Liverpool?
Yes, I have. The university provides accommodation for all of the first-year students. Next year I'll probably rent a flat or share a house.
You don't seem very excited about it.
I am excited, but as I said, I'm also a bit sad about leaving. I mean, I've made some good friends here at the holiday camp. Like you and...
And Jack.
Yes, Jack. Anyway, Liverpool isn't that far away from here. I checked. It's only about 120 kilometers. Jack can come and visit me in his car. And you?
He's leaving too, you know, next week.
Who? Jack?
Yes. Didn't he tell you? He was offered another job somewhere.
He didn't tell me about that.
Oh, I see. Maybe it's secret, and he's only told his closest friends.
Who is it?
It's me, Jack.
It's Jack. Don't tell him I told you.
Okay, I won't. I promise.
Can I come in?
Oh, yes, of course.
Hi, Danny. Hi, Anna. Have you packed your bags then?
No, not yet. I'll do that tonight. You in a good mood?
Yes, I am. Well, it's Friday today. It's nearly the weekend.
What are your plans for the weekend, Jack? Are you doing anything tomorrow night?
No, not really.
Do you fancy going into Leeds? Maybe we could see a film, have a pizza.
Yes, sure. Why not? There's a French film at the cinema, a police drama. I really want to see it.
Oh.
How about you, Anna?
I won't be here. I'm leaving tomorrow.
Oh, yes, that's right. Anyway, I'm just going to the shop to buy some bread. Do you need anything?
No, thanks.
No, I'm fine.
Okay. See you later. Bye.
He's in a good mood.
Yes, he is.
I wonder why.
Like he said, it's the weekend soon.
Okay. See you later.
Yes, bye. Hi, Libby. Me? Oh, I'm not feeling too happy. Yes, tomorrow. I'm going by train. Yes. Yes. Jack knows I'm leaving. No, he doesn't. He seems really happy. I don't understand it. I know. Me too. I really thought he liked me.